Let's step through it one step at a time and cover the titles, salary range, benefits, job summary, corporate culture, and requirements. The anatomy of a great job description. Requirements need to be clear and actionable. They must be realistic, and they must be measurable or verifiable. When building out the requirement set, make sure to predefine the must-haves versus the nice-to-haves and how you're going to measure them. For soft skills, don't ask, assess. No one's going to tell you that they're a horrible communicator or they're not reliable. You're going to need to measure that. And make sure you can define why for every requirement. So going into a little more detail. Clear. Your requirements have to be clear. There's an easy way to check this. When you have your requirements, hand them to somebody else to read, preferably someone who's not in your company, maybe not familiar with all of your company jargon. Can they describe the job to you, the requirements of the job? Because if they can't, those requirements might not be very clear. They also must be measurable. For each one, define out exactly how you're going to prove if someone meets that requirement or not. Some will be easy. Requirements like must have a driver's license. Pretty easy to validate. Look at the driver's license. Some of them not so much. Engineer that must be able to program in Java. Okay, how are you going to measure that they know enough Java? Are you going to have them write some code for you? Who's going to evaluate it? Maybe a test? Make sure that you have a reasonable way of measuring it consistently for all your applicants. The requirements must be realistic. Sounds obvious, and yet this one's messed up so much that we actually have terms for it. Unicorn, purple squirrel. Those amazing candidates that don't actually exist. Here's a great way to see if your requirements are realistic. Look around in your company. Can you point to someone who meets these requirements, like a peer or someone in a similar role? Because if the answer is no, and you can't find someone who checks every one of those boxes, you may have too many boxes. Defendable. Make sure that you can clearly explain why for every requirement. This one is not just important for making sure you have the right requirements. This one is critical for compliance. Because if you cannot clearly explain why for every requirement, if someone challenges you for why they were not hired or why they were let go because they didn't actually meet the requirements, you open yourself and the company up for liability. Defendable is very important. And then finally, the must-haves. All the requirements must be something that's required in order to be successful with the job. Otherwise, you can be weeding out perfectly good candidates that could make great hires. So for each of those requirements, ask yourself, can someone be successful in a job without it? For example, is there something you can train them? Or somebody else in the team can do that job? Or it's really not something they have to do very often anyway? If it's not a must-have, remove it. Don't weed out great candidates because of something you don't need. Requirements are pretty tricky. They're hard to do. Luckily, we've got some great content on it. So if you have any questions or you want more information, please come to our blog. I'm going to show you where it is in a second. Or you can always contact us. Clearly, we love talking about these topics. So in summary, when creating a great job description, make sure you have job titles that clearly define the role and the responsibility. Your salary range is honest and transparent, and if you don't share it, you check early. Your benefits are clear, and they include all those great quirky little things that you provide your employees and show how much you care. Your job summary focuses on what candidates are going to be doing for you in the role and what success looks like, not what they do for a living. Your culture is all about the vision, the mission, and the organizational personality, and not the ping pong table. Leave the ping pong table off. and your requirements are clear, defendable, and must-haves. Thank you very much. If you'd like to learn more about this or any other topic, we have a lot of information that's readily available right on our website, including a description or including the white paper for the job description, which goes into a lot more detail about what we just talked about, and our blog, which covers a variety of topics around hiring best practices, diversity and inclusion, removing bias, and quite a bit more. And we also have additional webinars on our YouTube channel.